Dylan.
And I'm Kiyan.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where there's no honest men left. Because this week we watched the Ribos Operation.
Right, written by Robert Holmes.
Directed by George Spenton Foster.
And aired in September of 78.
Hey, wait, is this the guy who did all those weird zooms on everyone's face back in, what was it? The other one he directed. Image of the Fendall.
I guess.
Well, I didn't really notice any weird zooms in this one, so I guess I'm gonna let him off the hook for this one.
Well, it's actually pronounced Ribos.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I honestly thought it was Ribos.
Yeah.
Basically, since we started this podcast. And then the very first time it said in the serial, it's like, we're on Ribos. Dang! So...
So close! No.
So close, yet so far. Yeah, so this serial actually does begin a season-long arc, as I deftly predicted last week.
The first one ever, if you don't count the master subplot one. Because
Yeah.
that wasn't really a story arc, it was just
No, that was
the
just
master.
them using the master every week. And then getting really predictable by the end.
Right, yeah, so this serial cuts right to the chase. You know, doesn't mince any words, it gets right to the story arc that's going to be here the entire season, with the Doctor the TARDIS getting pulled off track like it usually does.
By some celestial force. The Doc's like, only a Guardian could do that. And then he opens the door. Yeah, neglecting to mention like millions of times before it's happened due to natural interference.
So he comes out of the TARDIS onto some sort of savannah-looking
Yeah.
plane, except it looks a lot less realistic than you would want.
And there's just a guy sitting in a beach chair drinking a green drink.
Yeah, he looks kind of like the architect from The Matrix.
Well, I was gonna say he looks kind of like, what's his name from Jurassic Park? We spared no expense. That guy.
Yeah,
Hammond.
Hammond. Anyway, he doesn't mince words either, because he tells the Doctor that the key to time is in danger.
Basically, the universe is about to come to the point where it'll fall apart and be impossible to put back together, and the White Guardian, he's the White Guardian, by the way, the White Guardian needs the key to time to prevent that, and he chose the Doctor as the guy who's going to go get it.
Right, it's been split into 6 pieces intentionally because it's usually pretty dangerous, except when the universe is about to fall apart, then they need it in one piece. So the Doctor's been chosen to find these 6 pieces, and
the
yeah,
Doctor's
that's
like,
pretty
well,
much it.
do I have to? And the White Guardian's like, no, you can just walk away. And he's like, really, what'll happen if I do that? The Guardian's like, nothing. The Doc's like, oh, nothing. The Guardian's like, yep, nothing. Forever. The Doc's like, oh.
Pretty uncharacteristic of the Doctor to not want to help out immediately.
Well, I assume he doesn't want to... I assume he doesn't want an oversight. I guess he doesn't want to work for someone more powerful than him. Not that the Doctor's all that powerful, really. Still K9 who's the obviously overpowered one.
Well, I'll just say I spoiled the entire season-long plot arc already. So, I mean, based on what I know, I guess it's not that uncharacteristic.
Great.
That's all I'll say.
Great.
Anyway.
Well, the White
K9
Guardian also mentions the Black Guardian. We should throw that
Yeah.
out there, because I assume he's going to show up at some point in this season. And I know he shows up at some point in the 5th Doctor's run again randomly, so...
Yeah, the Black Guardian is basically the opposing force who wants the universe to fall apart.
Yeah.
And obviously needs to get his hands on the 6 pieces of the key to do that.
Oh yeah, and apparently the Celestial Toymaker's a Guardian. Yeah, I was reading about the Black Guardian. It was like, oh yeah, there were 6 Guardians. They're like white, black, brown, crystal, red, and then like something else. And the Toymaker was the Crystal Guardian.
One of these things is not like the others.
Yeah, the crystal. Apparently the Toymaker's was retconned into being a Guardian.
No, they planned it all along. No.
So yeah. I don't know if this happens, but I think it'd be interesting if the Black Guardian hired the Master to look for the keys to time.
Yeah,
The key to time.
I was gonna say the White Guardian hires a lackey to find the keys, and the Black Guardian just does it himself.
Yeah, it would be interesting though if he hired the Master, and then we could see the Doctor versus the Master as sort of a meta battle for the White Guardian versus the Black Guardian.
Yep.
But you probably know what happens in regards to that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say anything.
And I'll just hit you with my blind hope that it will happen.
So, the White Guardian has also given the Doctor a new companion, a Time Lord.
Who just graduated the academy. As in, I guess a couple hours before being dumped on the Doctor's TARDIS.
I'm sure nothing could go wrong. Well,
she's just graduated the academy and she's 140 years old.
Yeah, it turns out she's the most hot-headed, incorrigible person they could have possibly gotten to do this.
You know, I actually kind of like her.
Yeah, no, I do too.
When she was first introduced in this scene, she's kind of just a jerk for a whole scene. And I was like, wow. But then through the rest of the scene, I was like, hey, I actually really like Romana. Her name's Romana.
Yeah, well, it's actually...
Romana Vdrelunda?
Yeah, I'm not going to try, but...
I know it ends in Lunda and begins with Romana. I don't know the syllable in between, though.
Well, she kind of makes fun of the Doctor for, one, not graduating, or graduating lowest of his class.
51%.
Yeah. And also not being able to control the TARDIS.
The Doctor's like, hey, I've got years of experience you don't have, so why don't you stop talking like that? She also uses these really big words and tries to sound really pretentious, and then the Doctor's like, what? The Doctor's like, well, so we've got this little thing. The White Guardian gave the Doctor this little seeker thing.
Convenient key-to-time tracker.
That's the core to the key to time. Apparently, I guess the key actually has 7 pieces if you count the core.
Yeah, I guess.
And it apparently it was given to the Doctor by way of having it with Romana when Romana shows up on the TARDIS.
Right.
Romana's like, okay, so this will track the keys, and if we touch it, or the pieces, and if we touch it to the piece, then it turns into its regular form because all the pieces are disguised as other things.
Right. Sort of like the TARDIS if it actually worked.
So he's like, well, okay. And she's like, just put it in that hole in the console. It's like, when did this hole get in my console? And Romana's like, oh, I put that there. And he's like, well, what did you do to my console?
Meanwhile, K9 Mark II is just sort of hanging out. Pretty similar to K9 Mark I, not that I
actually pretty much identical.
Otherwise. Yeah.
Apparently,
except perhaps less bloodthirsty. Perhaps.
Yeah. Well, it was built by the Doctor, so... apparently they wanted to actually just completely get rid of K9 after last season because the prop was causing issues and was really difficult to maneuver. But the prop designer fixed it up and made it a lot easier to move and a lot better this season, so they're like, okay, I guess we can keep K9.
Yeah, quote-unquote, a lot easier. No, I don't know if it actually was easier or not, but... In another dog-related side story, Tom Baker was actually bitten on the lip by a dog, and it's pretty noticeable because you can see the little mark or whatever it was.
The scar.
Yeah.
Actually, I only noticed it in episode 1. After that, I was just didn't care anymore, I guess.
Yeah, probably because it first shows up in 1, and then after that you're like, oh, okay, it's still there, but... Whatever.
Probably. Maybe he was bitten by K9. K9 went rogue.
Maybe it was K9 Mark 1. No, I don't know.
Parting gift.
So, meanwhile, on an icy planet...
It's hot.
I'm sure this isn't where the key to time is or anything. No. No, these two guys are trying to break into some building from the roof. And apparently there's just some sort of shaft that leads down into a monster's lair that's guarding some crown jewels.
Yeah, and Mission Impossible the shiz out of
that. And this is the introduction of Garen and Unstaff.
Unstaff. Unstaff. I only knew Unstaff's name. Didn't know Garen's name. Maybe that was because Unstaff was more interesting.
Well, these are the two most interesting characters in the serial, and the two most interesting characters in a long while.
True.
I wish they got their own spin-off.
What, going across the galaxy conning people?
Yeah, it was great. They reminded me of, in Huck Finn, the King and the Duke. except more likable.
And more space-age futuristic. Anyway, this break-in reveals a key flaw in their plan. So they're actually breaking into plant this rock. I forget what it's called.
Jethric.
Jethric, yeah. In the case with the crown jewels. For this elaborate plan they have later. But the question arises, why don't they just steal the crown jewels now that they have the case open? Crown jewels are probably worth a lot more than whatever they're going to get through their convoluted, complicated scheme.
They're not... Well, they are thieves, but they're also con men. You know, it just wouldn't feel right for them to steal all those expensive-looking objects. See, the thing is, you have to get the person to give you the stuff willingly.
But there's
even though they're trying to sell.
There's another hole in the plot that I think the Doctor even brings up later. Like, why don't you just sell the Jethric? This is probably worth hundreds of millions of credits.
No, the reason they were doing that is so they could keep doing their scheme over and over with the same lump of Jethric.
Wow.
But this is supposed to be their last job.
Right. Yeah. Right. So the Doctor and Romana are hanging out in the TARDIS, and they're looking at the coordinates, and they move, and the Doctor's like, what? But then the coordinates center on Ribos, so he's like, all right, guess we're going to Ribos.
Yeah, this actually comes into play later. I didn't get the little explanation later.
Oh,
about.
I did.
Okay,
I'll explain it when we get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
So they arrive, and they're like, okay, let's just use this tracker thing. We'll find the key, and we'll be out of here in no time. It'll be easy. So they leave Kane out of the TARDIS, because I guess they assume this is going to be a quick snatch and grab type mission. But of course, this is only episode 1, so you know something's going to go horribly, horribly wrong.
So they also break into the palace, or whatever it was. Surprisingly easy to break into. I mean, it's guarded by a little monster, I guess.
Yeah.
It looks like some sort of mini dragon thing.
Yeah, it's the same type of monster in the catacombs later.
Yeah, but
smaller.
It does its job pretty terribly because it just sleeps on the job.
Right. So the Doctor and Romana get inside, and they're like, well, it's obviously in this case, but I wonder what it is. And then I think the alarm gets sounded.
Yeah, and the Doctor is almost...
the monster gets woken up.
Yeah, Romana is almost caught under... There's a little drop-down door that separates the monster from the treasury or whatever it was.
Jewel room, I don't know.
Yeah, and Romana gets stuck in it. This is actually a good time to mention that Romana is bringing it back to the Katie Manning era of what the heck is she wearing?
Are you kidding? I love that outfit.
She looked like Cruella de Vil.
I specifically loved it because it was so outlandish. It almost matched the Doctor's outfit in outlandishness. Although the Doctor's outfit looks at least somewhat good on him. Actually, I think the white coat looked pretty good on Mary Tam. I think is the actress's name. Yeah, it's Mary kind of Tam. Over the top, though.
Yeah, this was some Padme stuff right here. Well, hopefully they'll just get more elaborate and more stupid as it goes on.
No, I think it'll get a less elaborate.
Yeah, probably.
Because I feel like that was the outfit she was wearing when she graduated from the academy, and now she'll go and hunt through the TARDIS's extensive wardrobe for more grounded outfits.
Maybe those are the graduation gowns. Imagine the Doctor in one of those.
Yeah, but it would be the first Doctor, so that's even better.
Yeah, it is.
So
we also mentioned that I think we got the Doctor's age for the first time.
979. No, second, I think.
Second?
He mentions it back in Tomb of the Cybermen to Victoria.
Oh, yeah. Don't know how you remembered that, but yeah.
Well, I think she's like, you're 979, and he's like, 977. She's like, you lost count. And he's like, well, when you get to be as old as I do, it doesn't really matter anymore.
900, or was it in the 700s?
No, doesn't really matter. Never really matters, actually. Maybe it was in the 700s. I don't
don't
know.
know. Yeah,
Make more
whatever.
sense if it was in the 700s, I guess.
Anyway, I guess now is when the Graf Vindicate shows up.
Yeah. He's just...
Into
he's
episode 2, that is.
he's moping around. Episode 1 ends with the gate coming down on Romana. The doctor being like, "Oh no, Romana!" And
then episode
saving
2...
her.
No, yeah, I didn't get why he, like, jumped under the gate himself. Because, I mean, obviously he was trying to save her, but this is it's kind of like...
I guess he was trying to lift it up so she could get out.
Yeah, but, I mean... If he failed, it would have ended in, like, both of them dying, not just...
Yeah, well, I figured he was like, well, if she's going, I want to go too. It's pretty
I
quick
don't
to
know.
just befriend this lady who he pretty much hated back in the TARDIS.
Yeah, pretty much. He also gives her the Romana nickname, and she's like, but
Yeah.
I hate Romana. He's like, well, that sucks, Romana.
Well, Molly was like, it's Romana or Fred. And she's like, okay, call me Fred. He's like, okay, Romana, let's go. Well, behind the scenes, it was apparently going to be Romy, which is even worse. Actually, Romy just plain sucks.
Yeah, no, there was... According to rumor, Rodan from the last serial was supposed to be the new companion, but things didn't fall into place for that to happen, so
Yeah,
we got Romana.
but that's
Okay, I liked her actor.
Yeah, I like Romana.
Pretty snarky. Rodan would have just been another generic companion.
It's nice how the Fourth Doctor has given us all these unique companions
Well-
with distinct personalities.
Well, Leela and Romana, I mean, Sarah was kind of just...
Sarah was a holdover from the Third Doctor's era.
Still.
Fine.
Just generic companion. She was good, but I don't know. That's a discussion for not now. So anyway, the Graf shows up with his little entourage.
Wait, we should mention how they get out of the gate closing on them. They're like, hey, the gate's jammed. And they're like, well, lift it up then. It might be crushing the monster. And he's like, okay, I'll lift it up a bit. And he lifts it up a bit and they escape. And then he's like, well, it's not jammed anymore, so I'm going to close it. And the guy's like, okay, just close it. So the Doctor and Romana get locked in the jewel room.
Right, they hide when the Graf comes in and has an audience with some guards who are actually Garen and Unstaff.
No, I think that's later. First, he mentions that he wants his gold stored in the thing, and then he talks with Unstaff and Garen.
Well, anyway,
So he
we should-
bribes the captain into basically letting him keep his gold in the jewel room.
yeah, well, we should probably explain who the Graf is. So he's
I think he was like a general in an army.
he was a noble, and
Some
then he
sort
went
of
to go
noble.
fight a war, but he served his people so poorly that they didn't want him back on the throne, so they initiated his brother as the new Graf, I guess is their title. And he's like, oh, hell no. So he's been roaming the galaxy ever since, trying to find a new planet where he can stage an army and take back his throne.
Yeah. So he bribes the captain into letting him keep his gold in the room, and then he talks with Unstaff, who's just the quote unquote guard on duty.
Right, we also should probably mention that Garen is sort of the old hat, and then Unstaff is the upstart who's training under him.
The upstart
Oh,
Silurian.
God, the upstart Silurian.
Yeah. So Unstaff's posing as a guard in the room, and Garen's in there just kind of
Hanging out.
yeah.
So Unstaff makes up this story about his dad, his long lost father, finding the Jethric mines and
The Scringe Stone.
the Scringe Stone, and his last wish being for his son to go find the mines in his place because he died supposedly.
And apparently the Graf is like, interesting.
He buys it.
Yeah. Well, he tries to. They don't sell it to him yet. Because they're trying to
Oh
sell...
no, he buys the story. I meant.
Yeah, oh, okay. He
a little
buys
while.
the stone. He tries to buy the stone later. Then it's like, interesting. So Unstaff is like, well, I'm just going off duty now, and leaves. And
Garen is mad that he's deviating from the plan so much because the plan never involved this sob story about his father. They were just gonna sell they're just gonna plant the Jethric, sell it to the Graf, steal it back, I guess, or sell the mine
Yeah.
that they found the Jethric from.
yeah, that's their whole scheme, is they just sell fake mines.
and
then
Sydney
run
Opera
away.
and Sydney Harbor. Basically just sell things they don't own, obviously, and take off. And I guess they use this Jethric to do it, because they try and snatch back the Jethric after all their schemes.
Yeah, so...
Jethric, we also should mention, is like the most rare and valuable material in the galaxy or something like
And
that.
not only is it rare and valuable, it also powers basically every spaceship in the galaxy, apparently, for some reason.
Yeah.
So the Doctor and Romana pop out, and they're like, hey, it's actually, I want to mention the scene where the Graff's men are looking around the room for any other people, and one of Graff's men, like, goes down to look at this, like, in carving on the wall, and he looks straight to his right, and he would be looking straight at Romana, and he just doesn't notice her.
Maybe he does, and he's like, not worth the effort. I'm just gonna pretend I didn't see you.
She's wearing, like, white, like, only white, in a room that's purely brown.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway, the Graff's right-hand man is named Shellac.
Yeah, like wood shellac.
And he doesn't become important at all until he dies, so...
Not spelled like wood shellac, but anyway. Yeah. Yeah, and
So
they're talking with Garen, and the Doctor and Romana pop out, like, he had an honest face, and they're like, yeah, he did. And then the Graff leaves, and they talk with Garen for a bit. Like, yeah, Garen, you totally had an honest face. And Garen's like, well, I better be going now. So it's just the Doctor and Romana.
Right, they kind of get some backstory at some point here. I forget where it is. Not backstory,
It's when
but
they all get captured, and then Garen spills their whole life story to them while they're trapped.
That too, but also the planet supposedly goes through 2 seasons, the ice time and the
not
sun,
ice time.
I think it was the sun time, I don't know. But it's basically 32 years of harsh winter and then 32 years of something else.
Was it implied that the planet was, like, not... I guess civilized is the word I'm looking for, but they, like, didn't have space travel?
Yeah, no, they didn't. They didn't even know what stars were.
Okay, that's what I thought, but then, like, the only person talking about that was Binro, who was the crazy old hermit who lived just in the, like, side corridors of the city.
Yeah, no, Binro was like the Galileo Copernicus figure of this serial.
Yeah, except he doesn't get excommunicated by the church, he just gets...
excommunicated by society in general, which is, like, I guess equivalent, since society was the church back then. But anyway, that's... Yeah. I don't know, that subplot barely had any bearing on anything, but I thought it was pretty interesting, not gonna lie.
Yeah, it was world building. So the Doctor and Romana talk for a bit, and Romana's like, so he had an honest face, and the Doctor's like, yeah, his story's not true, and Romana's like, you didn't believe him? And he's like, nope.
You did?
Romana, I think we're gonna see Romana get more experience throughout her whole run. I mean, pretty clearly this serial was supposed to demonstrate she's kind of an opposite to the Doctor in that she's inexperienced in the ways of the galaxy. I mean, she knows a lot about Time Lord education, but she doesn't know...
She's book smart, but she's not street smart.
And the Doctor's the opposite, so I think it'll be pretty interesting to see how their dynamic plays out over the next couple serials.
Well, should be, at least.
I mean, this is... Yeah, we can hold hope. I mean, Leela's run was interesting. We had hoped it would be interesting, so clearly they sometimes deliver on this show.
Yeah, well, that's up for debate.
So they're about to, I guess, steal something from the little holder thing, but they're like, well, better escape now because there's guards coming, and they'll realize we're not part of these people. So I think they go... Or they decide to... Or the Doctor decides to... I should be more accurate. The Doctor decides to watch Garen to see when he's going to break back into the room to steal back the Jethric, because he's pretty sure he's going to do that. Then when he does that, they'll just nab him. Yeah, so they go... Garen talks with the Graff for a bit and then leaves, and the Graff discovers a small little transmitter thing in the fireplace in the room. So he's like, well, this is interesting.
He doesn't know what it's for. He assumes that he's not on to Garen and stuff yet, so he assumes that they planted it there so they can overhear his discussion with Shellac about how much they're willing to pay.
Yeah. So, yeah, the Doctor is going to watch Garen because he's waiting for him to basically steal back the Jethric, because the Doctor has realized at this point that the Jethric is actually the piece of the key to time.
Right.
Romana thinks it's the crown. The Doctor's like, no, it's the Jethric.
No, that would be too easy.
And she's like, how do you know it's the Jethric? So the Doctor explains that he knows it's the Jethric because
This is what I didn't get.
the Seeker thing, the core that detects the pieces of the key to time, because it detected 2 different readings on the Jethric, or the piece, it detected one and then it moved to Ribos and then it stayed on Ribos. The Doctor's like, oh, so clearly the piece must have been moved recently, and then there was some other piece of information that told the Doctor that the Jethric hadn't been in the case the whole time. I think he mentions that it just looks out of place, and why would they even store that with the crown jewels? So he's like, why would the Jethric be in there? So he knows the Jethric's been moved recently and it doesn't belong in the case. So he's like, well, must clearly be the Jethric. That's the key to time. So Romana's like, makes sense to me. So they go to get Garen, and the Doctor breaks into the room again with Unstaff, and Unstaff makes off with the Jethric, and then the Doctor goes and captures Garen. But then they all get captured by the Graf's guards, and he's like, well, Garen. And Garen's like, well, then. And then episode 2 ends because the Graf's like, kill them!
In episode 3, they obviously don't kill them.
Yeah, I don't know how they talked their way out of that one.
It's Garen.
Pretty sure it was the Doctor who talked out of that one.
Yeah, probably.
So they're like, well,
they lock
him in a room. The room with the transmitter, I might add.
Yeah. This is where Garen explains his backstory about how he got his start on Earth, because I forgot to mention earlier, the Doctor mentions that Garen has some accent or the other from Earth, and he's like, wow, that's interesting, and yeah, he's actually from Earth, and he got his start by selling Sydney Harbor to an Arab, but when he asked for him to throw in the Opera House, Garen was like, no, I can't do that. That's when he realized his ruse, and that's when Garen made a run for it, and now travels the universe conning people. I wonder if he had that piece of Jethric ever since the beginning. Probably. I think that's how it's implied that he left Earth.
Yeah, he mentions that he kind of just stumbled upon it at one point, and he was like, cool, Jethric. And then he stumbled upon Unstaff, and was like, you're my new protege. So Unstaff has actually escaped. He's eluded capture, and he's hiding in the concourse.
Right, he's hiding in the town, and there was some more world building earlier where they have the town, and there's basically 2 settlements on the planet or something like that. There's the town, and there's like the Northlands, where they're apparently...
Sounds like Game of Thrones.
So, yeah, the people on the planet haven't established space travel, and they have this old-ish religion, dates back for probably thousands of years.
Doesn't really come into play.
Except for that really annoying priestess.
You mean the Seeker?
Yes. So,
who actually shows up in episode 3, I think, for the first time.
Graf is trying to find the Jethric when he realizes that it's not there anymore, so he hires the Seeker, who is part of this ancient religion, and she uses some bones to douse the Jethric, and she's acted really annoyingly because her actress just won't stop yelling.
Maybe that's...
The bones! Okay.
Maybe that's what the director wanted. George Spenton Foster was like...
Yeah, well, get with the program, George Spenton Foster. This character is really annoying.
Maybe that's what he wanted her to be.
Maybe.
So, the Doctor calls up K9. K9 didn't show up in episode 2 at all, but then in episode 3 he just pulls out a dog whistle and is like, don't worry, I'll get us out of this. And then he blows it, and then K9 opens the TARDIS door somehow.
Yeah, no, did you notice that as he was coming out of the TARDIS, it looked like he was stuck? Because he only opened one door, and it looked like he couldn't get out. But then they just kind of cut away from that.
They did the same thing at the end when he was getting in the TARDIS. They showed him, like, driving up to the door, and then they cut away.
Yeah, they always do that. Because there's that little ledge that he can't get over without someone moving him.
He stops at the door, and he's like, Master?
It's like when your dog stands by the door because they want to go out.
Might be too much dog programming in this computer.
Romano's like, instead of good computer.
Good computer.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah,
Anyway.
well, I mean, if you think about it, K9's just this artificial intelligence. The only one in the show so far to not go insane and try to take over the world.
Yeah, there's a pretty bad track record here.
So, the K9 comes to rescue them.
The K9.
The K9 actually sounds way cooler than just K9.
It's a superhero alter ego.
Flies around.
It doesn't work because it's the exact same name as his actual name.
His disguise is to just put on glasses.
Or to just take off glasses, Clark Kent style.
Anyway, the K9 comes to rescue them, and the doctor fiddles with the little bug that
Graph
Graph.
left. Garen
the graph
planted
left
and
that Garen
Graph left.
planted. Really convenient that the graph just left it behind instead of just dropping it into the fire immediately below the bug. Because now they contact Unstaff and tell him to meet in the catacombs because they've been found out and captured.
Right. Meanwhile, Unstaff has met Binro the Heretic, who, like we mentioned before, is the only one on the planet who believes that the lights in the sky aren't ice crystals, but are actually other suns, and that travel between them is possible. And he's right, and that's why society has basically shunned him. And he tells his entire story to Unstaff, who immediately tells him that he's right, and he just gets super happy. And I don't know, I guess he just
He just believes that Unstaff is telling the truth.
Yeah, because Unstaff explains how he's from another planet and everything, and I guess after a lifetime of being told he's wrong, Binro is just ready to accept anyone telling him he's right, which is pretty depressing.
Yeah, it's even more depressing considering what happens to him in about one episode. So, Binro also happens to have extensive knowledge of the catacombs, probably because he's been ejected from the town and basically lives in the catacombs.
Yeah, I think he lives in sort of just a little hole in the wall.
Like a literal hole in the wall.
Yeah, which has an escape route to the catacombs. Like literally just behind a piece of cloth that he's hung up.
It's his decoration.
So yeah, they make their way down there, and doesn't look too inviting. Apparently there's more of those monsters that guarded the crown jewels in the catacombs, except bigger. Yeah,
and when Binro finds this out, he's like, well, this proves there has to be another way out of the catacombs because they feed on the life that lives above ground, so they have to exit the catacombs somehow. And they can't come this way because this way leads directly into the town.
Into my house.
So they head into the catacombs. K9 shows up, blasts a guard, and then Romano's like, is he dead? K9's like, nope.
Negative.
I used stun, Mark 7.
It's probably near-death stun.
I think... I like the implication that the Doctor went through 6 other marks of the stun technology before arriving at this one.
Oh, I thought it was just, there was Mark 1, which was the weakest. Mark 2 is the next
That could be it too, but I prefer to believe that the Doctor failed at creating a stun device for 6 iterations before finally making one. But yeah, the Doctor, the guard is not dead.
Right, no one dies until episode 4.
It's a miracle.
In which, like, 5 people die.
In which basically every character that's been introduced so far dies, except for...
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the Doctor and his newly expanded co that includes...
Garen.
That's
it, just Garen.
Just Garen. Head into the catacombs, and they hear the graph coming, because the Seeker has been like, they're in the catacombs.
Except we're like, they're in the catacombs! No one will live! No one will live! Right, she also tells the graph that only one person is going to make it out of this alive.
Yeah, and the graph's like, yeah, I don't believe that.
Except he actually does, because he's pretty much dead set on him being that one person in episode 4, which backfires completely.
Yeah, so the Doctor and Co are hiding in where there used to be bodies, but now there's skeletons.
Yeah, that was really creepy. The doctor jumps onto a little ledge, and he's right next to a little skull there.
And he's like, whoa, K9 hides under one of them.
Convenient that there would just be some little crevices to crawl into in the wall right where they needed them. But yeah, the Graph doesn't find them. That's the cliffhanger of episode 3, is that the Graph is about to find them.
Yeah, because the doctor knocks a skull out. And he's like, whoops! And then the Graph's like, it's too dangerous to proceed. Let's go back a bit and see the Seeker again.
Right, because the catacombs apparently smell of death the same way that the other catacombs on another planet that the Graph was stuck in apparently for 2 years or something like that.
When do catacombs not smell like death? Isn't
know.
that like the entire definition of a catacomb?
I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know. Anyway, yeah, they head back.
Well, the doctor decides to head to the Graphs.
He decides to tail the
watch
Graph. Yeah.
the Graph to make sure he doesn't follow them in, while Romana goes with Garen to go find the Jethric.
She goes to find Garen because he stole the core to the...
Well, the plan was for them to go together to find the Jethric, but Romana had offhandedly... Well, the doctor had offhandedly mentioned that the Seeker searches the Jethric, so Garen had stolen it from Romana. He's like, curses!
So she goes with K9 to go find that.
K9 and Romana have some witty banter back and forth, and she covers him with her extensive cloak thing. And then K9 uses this little plunger thing that's in between his eyes that I never really understood what its purpose was, even on Mark 1 until... Well, I still don't understand its purpose, but he uses the plunger to try push the cloak off.
It's his little R2-D2 arm thing that the doctor didn't improve upon whatsoever when he made K9 Mark II.
Are there going to be K9 compatible computer systems at some point, and we'll see K9 just start hacking into them?
K9 OS.
You realize now there's 2 K9s in existence, which means they might one day meet and have even more witty banter back and forth between them.
Or become... Never mind.
Were you going to say, like, Mecha K9?
No, I was going to say, like, have a Jedi and Sith relationship. I guess we're still on Star Wars, but yeah. I don't know. Imagine K9 wearing, like, a Vader... Never mind.
Well, there's also that Australian K9 spin-off TV show.
Yeah.
You know, we're almost at that other K9 spin-off show that only had 1 episode.
Yeah.
That aired in 81, and we're at 78 right now. So.
Yeah.
So Romana and K9 head off to go find Garen after their witty banter, like we mentioned, and she calls him a good computer after calling him a dumb computer. And the doctor sees the Graph brutally murder a guard in cold blood. And he's like, well, not gonna stand for that. And just decides to follow the Graph back to his room, I think.
Right, he puts on the dead guard's outfit. I guess that's what was supposed to have happened here.
Something like that. The Graph goes to see the Seeker again, and the Seeker's like, well, I'll lead you into the catacombs, but all of us except for one are gonna die. And he's like, yeah, whatever, just to get us. So they go into the catacombs, and you don't actually know the doctors put on the guard outfit until you see the procession walk by, and then you see the one guard trailing a very long scarf beneath him.
And has K9's dog whistle in his mouth. But meanwhile, Unstoff has...
met up with Garen.
Yeah.
And Garen's like, yeah, I got this cool thing that traces the Jethric. And...
really useful to their scheme, actually.
Yeah.
If they wanted to do it again, this was supposed to be their last job.
Yeah, unless they accidentally touch the two together and then they don't have Jethric anymore.
Yeah.
Now,
anyway.
To them, they'd have a useless 1/6 of a cube.
Well, Binro actually went back before, but he's back again somehow. I forget how and why he comes back.
Well, he goes off to go find Garen, and he takes Unstoff's communicator, and then he runs into the Graph, and he's like, where did you get this? Take us to them. So he takes him, and then he shows up, and then they kill Binro, and Unstoff was like, no! But then they shoot Unstoff, and just nothing happens to Unstoff.
They shoot him in, like, the arm or something. He just kind of winces in pain. But Binro's death was pretty sad. He's like, life was worth it. Because of you and stuff. You told me I was right.
And then you're like, no, Binmo!
But really, you don't care because...
I guess it's to show how bloodthirsty the Graf is, and to make it okay that he just...
That the doctor kills him.
Well, so they decide... Okay, so the people in the town hear the gunshots, so they're like, well, we'll seal the catacombs forever, because they don't really like the Graf coming in and just gunning down their people. So they pull out a cannon and just shoot it into the catacombs. And it actually works. It seals off the catacombs.
Right. It kills everyone, including Shellac. And Garen is having none of that because he gets super sad and also crazy.
Yeah.
I guess, was there supposed to be some sort of implied romance between the Graf and Shellac? Because, like, he goes over to Shellac and, like, hugs him and kisses him.
He has that really long monologue to the doctor about how Shellac was there with him when they, like, invaded some other planet.
Yeah. Anyway.
So, Unstaff and Garen get separated from the group and trapped under some rubble, and Unstaff is like, we're trapped under rubble, Garen!
This is it. Garen's like, oh god, I didn't want to go out like this.
Then Romana shows up with K9, and she tries to move this boulder, and by tries to move, I mean, puts her hands on the boulder, makes no discernible effort to move the boulder, and then goes, yep, can't move the boulder, K9.
So K9 blasts it, and kind of just disappears.
Where does it go? Like, moves all the debris to who even knows where.
Wait, maybe the doctor built the DMAT gun into K9 Mark II.
Yeah, we forgot to mention the implication that the doctor remembers the entire events of the invasion of time at the beginning of the serial. Because when Romana mentions that he pauses with 51%, the doctor says that that should have been classified and he should have thrown the previous president to the Sontarans when he had the chance.
Yep.
Or not the previous president, I guess Barusa, the chancellor. Since he was the head of the school. The academy.
Oh, yeah, okay.
He's like, I should have thrown him to the Sontarans when I had the chance. Like, do you... What? So I guess he just remembers the entire events of that serial. Or he was told them.
Or he just randomly said that and just happened to coincide with everything that happened. No, I don't know.
Probably not. Anyway, yeah, so K9 meets up with them, and Garen's holding the device, and Romana's like, and he's like, oh, it fell out of your pocket, madam. She's like, yeah, into your hand. And then she takes it back and shoves it into her coat.
That's what always happens. Things just fall into their hands.
Right. So they kind of talk for a bit, and the doctor, well, the Graf kills the Seeker because he's intent on being the only one to live, and then he gives the guard a bomb. He's like, you'll have a noble death.
The doctor, that is.
Yeah, and then the Graf goes wandering off, and then you see the doctor start counting down. 5.
You're like, what? I was confused.
And then, kaboom! And the Graf just gets blown to pieces.
Yeah, I was really confused until they cut away and explain it in 2 seconds. So yeah, they cut to the doctor and Romana leaving.
Well, the doctor produces the Jethric from his pocket first, so you're like, oh, I guess he switched it for the bomb.
Yeah. And Garen's like, chip off the old block, doctor, switching the bomb for the Jethric like that. And you're like, oh, that's what he did.
Yeah. And the doctor's like, okay, well, we're going to leave now. And Garen's like, would you mind if I handled the Jethric just one more time? And the doctor's like, okay. So he takes it, apparently switches it for a regular stuff.
Yeah, you see him switch it.
Then the doctor goes into the TARDIS and like, great, guess they didn't get the piece. And Garen's like, see, Unstaff, guess we can retire now. And Unstaff's like, what? And he's like, just kidding, I totally still have the Jethric, we can go and do more sketchy things. And Unstaff's like, what? He's like, I switched it for a regular stone, see? And he pulls it out of his pocket and it's just a regular stone. And he's like, dang it, that man switched it back. Are there no honest men left in this world, Unstaff?
So, right, the doctor and Romana and K9 now have the Jethric, and the doctor touches the core.
No, Romana touches it. Because there's that whole scene where he's going to touch it, and he's like, no, you should do it, Romana. And she's like, no, I think you should do it. And the doc's like, no, I insist. You should do it, Romana. So she does, and then it turns into a little corner of a cube, I guess.
Yeah, looked like some weird MC Escher drawing.
They're like
Some fourth dimensional object. I don't know.
Only 5 more to go. Convenient that this season has 5 more cereals.
Well, that's why they made it. That's why they made it 6 pieces.
So that's the end of the Ribos operation and the beginning of the search for the key to time.
Yep. And
the introduction of a new companion. Once again, not a human from contemporary London.
right,
Yes,
the second
exactly what we wanted.
second Time Lord companion after Susan.
Yeah, if you count Susan.
Well, I don't know if Susan was a Time Lord, but second
Susan was from Gallifrey. You
Yeah.
can say that much at least.
Yeah.
Whether or not she was a Time Lord, still technically not determined. It's never actually been officially stated. Or Time Lady, I guess.
Yeah.
Some people use that term instead, but
Well, I guess we can talk about Romana for a bit. So
yeah.
she's like Leela. We've never seen a companion like this because most companions are pretty friendly with the Doctor, and she's not.
Leela was pretty friendly to the Doctor.
Well, I mean, like Leela, she's different from what we've seen before.
Yeah, and I mean, like I mentioned earlier, she's kind of the opposite of the Doctor in a lot of the ways. And I know, I was thinking about this. It's pretty interesting how both Leela and Romana are kind of opposites of the Doctor in different ways. Like, Leela was super bloodthirsty, and the Doctor's like, I don't really want to kill anyone. So they're kind of
Except the
opposites on
Graf.
that. Yeah, except for Graf. Well, the Graf was a bloodthirsty murderer who killed millions of people, it's implied. And Romana's kind of the opposite of the Doctor, and the Doctor's kind of just like, let's just go with the flow and see what happens. And Romana's like, we must plan everything out. Everything must be perfect. And I think it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out over the next couple serials. I think we'll see both characters move towards some sort of medium.
Well, we've said that before.
This is true, but it's always good to at least make predictions about what we want to happen, whether or not they do it or not. But I like Romana. She's pretty witty, and I actually really like her banter with the Doctor when she wasn't being a jerk to him in the first 5-10 minutes of her introduction.
Yeah, no, that's something I've noticed over the course of season 15 and now is that the show is starting to have a lot more banter that's actually kind of funny and not
Yeah.
just like ha 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 ha. It's actually like ha 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 ha. So a little bit more.
And it's kind of like how you quantified that by how much you laughed at the banter. And it was interesting to see how quickly the Doctor just became friends with Romana, even though she was just totally being a jerk to him for a while. He still pretty much jumps under the door to save her in the first episode, like he's just met her, and he's like, well, if we're going to be together, may as well be friends type
No,
thing.
he just lets her die.
I think he even explicitly calls her his friend at some point in the serial already, so be interesting. It's a member of his own race, someone who's, I guess, implied to be an intellectual equal to the Doctor, like Zoe was way back in the day.
Well, I spoiled the entire story arc of this season. I also spoiled a lot of stuff about Romana, which I'm not going to mention, obviously, but pretty disappointing that I now know all of that and won't see it firsthand. Well, we'll see it firsthand, but with the knowledge of what already happens. And I'll just say that Romana is the last companion to be introduced in a season opener.
Yeah, until the reboot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the very first
Yes.
episode of the reboot is a season opener, which
Yeah.
introduces a companion. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, now we know that there's no new companions in season openers, so
Yep. So I mean, I guess if a companion goes out on a finale, we'll know that the next serial is just the Doctor himself. If that happens.
yeah. But I guess it also opens up the fact that they may just introduce randomly new companions just in the middle of seasons.
Yeah,
now.
no, they do that. Well, Leela was introduced in the middle of a season.
Yeah, that's true,
And
actually.
I think, well,
No, the
there
lost
hadn't been one for a while if there was any. Steven. That's the only one I can think of.
Dodo, too. Steven, Dodo, and Ben and Polly, actually.
Ben and Polly were introduced at the end of a season.
Yeah, the exact opposite.
Anyway.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a return to the roots of the show. So they didn't really start introducing them in the season openers till till after Jamie, because Jamie was introduced the second episode of the Second Doctor, which is like the fourth episode of the season or whatever. And then after that, it was always kind of end of the season, actually. So it wasn't until the Third Doctor that they did the whole beginning of the season new companion thing.
I mean, unless you count the first episode.
Well, whatever. Anyway. I'm just looking forward to Romana's character arc. I'm actually aware that she sticks around for a while, and I'm aware of what happens to Mary Tam's, I guess, portrayal of the Romana, to keep that vague.
So you know about that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I really liked this serial. It had a lot of, like, world building, lore, I guess, which I usually like. This time it was weird, though, because it barely had anything to do with the plot.
It felt almost like filler, but it was interesting filler.
Yeah, it was, like, more interesting than the main conflict, so I was okay with it.
Yeah, it was like Robert Holmes built up this really interesting world, but then only showed us this really small piece of it that didn't relate to anything else he told us about.
Right. Maybe it comes back. No, it actually doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Not at all. But
there is a world to explore here. If there's a writer that needs a pretty much pre-made world with a lot of lore that doesn't have a lot relating to it in the universe.
Bring Ribos back.
Hashtag bring Ribos back. No, yeah, I think it's one of Robert Holmes' better serials that he wrote. I'm obviously excluding all the ones that he script edited for, since those don't really count.
No, they don't.
Yeah, so it's one of the better ones that he wrote. And I guess some of that background might be the Anthony Reid trademark info dump of the week.
Well, what was it this week? Garen's backstory?
Garen's backstory and a bin roast
I guess.
info dump on the planet. So there's your Anthony Reid trademark info dump of the week for you. But I think it sets a high bar for season 15 to 16 live up to. So living in the past. It sets a high bar for season...
We are living in the past. We're watching classic Doctor Who.
Well, not much of a better note to end on than that. So email us at thedoctor@decadentvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, thoughts on season 16, I guess. And the quest for the key to time. They somehow shove like all these expanded universe things into this season. I guess they just take detours from their quest for a while.
Yeah.
It's actually a really interesting book I want to read that stars both the Fourth Doctor and the Second Doctor that takes place in this season.
Well, they have all the time in the world, so...
Do it for Time Machine. Check us out on iTunes at Trust Your Doctor. Check us out on YouTube at Trust Your Doctor. Leave a rating if you like the show. It means a lot. And yeah, just tell your friends about the show.
Check us out on Facebook. Trust Your Doctor. Follow us like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter, TYD Podcast. Follow us on Twitter. And next week we continue with The Pirate Planet. Hopefully not as terrible as the Space Pirates. But until then, the end.